platform 1. Let's now see if platform 2 works. Looks like success. Alrighty. Let me get VS Code running real fast. Hey Dougal, long time no chat. Let me switch the scene. I actually have a scene switcher now, which is kind of cool, where I can press this button and you guys just see what I see. And I don't have to like go to OBS to tweak scenes anymore. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I have a Stream Deck. I don't like that those names are so close. Cool. So we're started. I use the AI summary whenever I do my streaming now, and let's see if it picks up this. So we're going to do first a progress update from yesterday. I left off last stream mentioning Sol 2 implementation. Success. Compiles. Only affected binary is actually the client, because the server and Snowball both actually don't use Lua at all. So this totally takes out no more Lua bind, which is huge because Lua bind is deprecated. I haven't been able to like fully test it yet, but my mentality in general when it comes to this project is I'm introducing a lot of technical debt, but as I cover different parts of the project, I will be adding testing and I'll be adding due diligence so that it's easier to do rapid fire improvements later. Since I'm kind of clean slate revamping the whole system, I have that sort of freedom to like, you know, make it a little bit more professional and not just by the hip project. So that's awesome. Very happy. We'll see how that gets updated by the AI summary system. Okay, so next, what's for today? So today, we're going to be working on the Snowball login flow. I also would love to start documentation on networking and other flows, because documentation is pretty lacking with the existing stuff. So I'm mentioning to someone I'm started streaming. I'll read that later. So I think that's going to be a really good productive thing to work on today. Let me double check everything is compiling fine. For now, we're only really focused on this code base. We may want to consider moving some services to Snowball repo, things like welcome, maybe front end. See, the issue is that I don't actually know all the required services in order to run the Snowball instance. And there is a debate with this part. Should it be moved to shared or just copy the code? Because the key is that I want Snowball to be independent. I want it so that if somebody is just getting into the project and they, want to like do a hello world experience, Snowball will be like a very portable, very simple, just to kind of hello world the whole project. You'll have a client that you can boot up, you can have a server, and you can just, do some quick sanity checks to see if the mechanics work. And I actually may even use Snowball as a launch pad for new features. Like I may slowly improve Snowball with some of the logic that I have planned as kind of a test bed before I introduce it into client. We'll see though. That's kind of a tentative, comment and thought. Anyway, so you can see it's compiling. It's all C++, so it takes a bit. Let's go ahead and also open up. I usually keep a ChatGPT open, but I also want to start using my project board more often. So if we go to projects, this is technically done. And this is technically done as well. Well, it's in progress. I still need to finish toolkit and samples. Yeah, just like it's documented. Maybe I'll put that back into to-do. BGFX support, that isn't critical. That's probably going to be in the to-do for a while. Anyways, it compiled fine. Interesting, the ports are still being forwarded. But so if we just do make run, there's the client. It's booting up. It's going to run like crap once it gets in game. And you'll notice on the top right, it says offline. And the frame rate is crap. But you can ignore all this. That's just a quick and easy way for me to boot up the client without having to like think about it. And yeah. I did a couple cleanups yesterday about like what shard ID to log into, the server state, and we could arguably just put login here. So this is the login server, right, that it's trying to authorize to, and this is the client booting up. And currently, you can see that there is an attempt to connect here, and then you can see the response here where there's a disconnect, and then it's like shard ID 3 is not available. So the shard ID 3, I'm still trying to track where it's getting that from. So connection web, line 204. This event's getting dispatch, which is essentially a, web client's trying to disconnect. And it is not doing good. So Dougal asks, what is this? So, okay. Ryzom is a MMO that you can go and grab on Steam. That is a 2005 project. And in my opinion, is not like the most amazing game. However, it's very stable and a lot of its backend infrastructure, it has pretty good bones, in my opinion. So it's a lot easier to take the Ryzom core, which is literally the project's name, and fork it, and then improve on it, and use it as a baseline and mod it, and turn it into like a new reshaped game. It's easier to do that than to start from scratch. And so for now, I'm only focused on Snowball. As far as what does it look like, I don't want to get distracted right now, Dougal. I do have a video that actually showcases the in-game play and everything like that. I'll link it to you later. But for now, don't worry about that. You can research Ryzom on your own time if you want, or just wait, because even how it looks is all open in the air. Like, when I'm done, it'll likely be an entirely new MMO. Graphics, UI, everything. Like even positioning. So Ryzom has no physics and it has no 3D pre-position coordinate system. Like there's no Z-axis. You basically are just on a flat plane constantly. You can't jump. You can't fall. I plan to add physics, and which is going to be a fun undertaking, but not as unrealistic as you might think when you consider just how much we're going to be revamping anyways. So that's why, like, even if you see Ryzom, don't assume that's what I'm making. Just assume that's my baseline. Because yeah, the key things for me are like the client is actually quite stable. It's not a massive memory hog. It has a shard-based authoritative server movement control. It uses a message kind of RPC queue system, which I like. It's actually a little bit better of a design pattern, in my opinion, depending on what we end up with and stuff. But anyways, so what we're focused on right now is that this client is having some events, and we're getting we don't get logging very well on the server side, because it goes servers initialized, executing start commands. Then it just says service is ready. So this is the init. You can ignore the shard created stuff. That was me testing. But then down here, we only get a disconnect client event, which implies that the auth chain is not quite there. So like if we go find login, it might be init login. I think it's like login loop. Okay, so here is the actual logging in flow. And you can see what this ultimately does this authenticate begin flow. And this is attempting to create the connection and send out a message of what's called VLP. And the question is does VLP get handled by login? So immediately, one of my questions is who's triggering this? Is it the client or the server? We're going to go ahead and kill both of these instances. And I can actually start a debugger and put a breakpoint. So if we start the login server as a debugger, and then we start a client, let's see what breakpoints this. Is it the client or the server? Or does it even trigger this code? Okay, we're immediately getting an exception. So there's a message exchange before that actually ever gets called. And this is on client. So client crashes before login even gets the attempt to authenticate it. Are you making an emu then, I assume? See, the problem with emu is that we're emulating something. This isn't an emu. This isn't a new MMO. Like this is, I'm taking Ryzom, which is a bona fide MMO that came out in the past and has been upkept by a small community of contributors. And I am designing a fork of it where we have full access and AGPL licensed code for both the client and server. And I'm slowly revamping it and turning it into a basically a new MMO. So I wouldn't call it an emu, but it kind of falls in the realm of an emu, yes. It's more like I'm making a new MMO altogether. And for the interim, I have this little demo project called Snowball, which is a really dumb, easy game where you're penguins and you just throw snowballs. It was a kind of like a demo that was pre-existing. And I'm using it as kind of like a jump point to test my network auth and the whole layers on how exactly, the reason I'm doing this. But so one of the immediate issues we have is I don't know a good breakpoint on how to see login requests. Because we have this NLP endpoint. If we look at the stack trace on a failure, which is a lot. I wouldn't get caught up on the OpenGL messages, Dougal. That's because I'm doing something weird. What's happening is that this code is actually on a remote Linux box, and it is forwarding the window for rendering to my Windows box. And because it's on Linux, it uses OpenGL, because DirectX is a proprietary driver for Windows-based systems. Ryzom supports DirectX, but obviously DirectX isn't supported on Linux without like Proton and a wine layer, which I don't need. So yeah. And these are all just super spammy debug messages about things not found for the OpenGL system. And it's all unapplicable for what we're doing right now. Because the game runs like shit. Like, don't get me wrong, but I don't care how well it runs because, like, you can see right here, this window, this is actually remotely being streamed from another machine. But once it gets in game, you see the frame rate where it's like not even a frame a second. It'll sometimes go up in frame rate, but this runs like shit just because I am doing this weird remote connection thing. And that's fine because I don't need it to run like perfection for my environment right now. So, and you can see there's a bunch of errors, but a lot of these are just noise that aren't applicable because all I really care about right now is the client boots up and it attempts to log in to the login server. And I rewrote the login server and I'm attempting to, trail the flow from client to server and then, server back and just the whole auth chain. Because once I have that intel, I can fix my issues. Because a quick history lesson, Snowball is unmaintained. It used to be, but over time, Ryzom Core got improved and only focused on services for the actual game. So what I'm doing is I took a login service that is likely legacy and started revamping it. This revamp likely isn't doing proper exchange yet. And I'm essentially turning Snowball into a maintained state. I'm trying to make Snowball work again, I guess, with all my new changes. So we're at a point where the connection is occurring, but even the connection, we aren't seeing messaging. Let's add a bunch of breakpoints to the auth chain. This one's going to trigger every time, but that's fine. In fact, let's go to the outline view. Send to client, do verify login, client choose shard, client connection. A lot of these events are never even triggering. You can see here, though, it is attempting a VLP binding here. In client, when you do authenticate begin, I believe is also, you can see here, it's doing a VLP message. So in theory, when I start the server, it initializes the web server component. This is actually a little gross, these NL asserts, because it's just going to cause us panic anytime these asserts fail. And I don't want it to panic. I want it to die gracefully. Because it just doesn't give context when it fails like that. So I'll have to put standard expected in a lot of this eventually, but I'm not going to bother with it just yet. Anyway, so this was the initializer. We now have the service up, right? Now let's go to client. We'll do a stack breakpoint system as well. And let's see what breakpoint we hit first, now that I put a bunch of them in. Okay, so here's the client. It's about to send VLP to the server. And VLP, yeah, this debugger is a little gross because, like, we're sending messaging, but you can't even see the data. Okay, there's my password. There's the application. It's just the login name that's failing. It's because of the UC string, like just how this binds. It's technically a string and it's GIN62. No, login 62 for some reason, but it's like a weird encapsulation of the message and it's converting it back. I wonder if we can get it off this UC string cleanly. But anyways, okay, so we're about to send this message and then immediately disconnects. We never even get an event message. Is this the stream though that just got sent? And then of course the server dies. Interesting. Why is the client not like dying? It's like stuck here, but it's not paused. Like, what is it doing right now? I can't even pause it. Like in a weird, okay, it was exiting and it just dumped weird. All right, so login is still running. Let's try client again. And we immediately go to disconnect. So there's something fundamentally wrong with the auth chain on client. One thing is that ls host is actually being passed as a standard string. Login is using SB client. Why is login SB client, by the way? Like, why is this not just standard string? Is there any side effects if I do that? Essentially, I'm doing a cast conversion. It's a bit of a... But like standard string is used all over the place for comparisons. I don't understand with this whole UC string. I know it's for like UTF-8 support, but doesn't standard string support UTF-8? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we just recompiled and login is now a standard string. I don't think this is going to impact anything per se. But let's see. Yeah, this is obviously the message coming in again. Wonder if we could make the debugger for message out be cleaner. I can't even find the stream of data. Wonder if I can make this more sanitary when I'm debugging. There's the panic. Okay, so again, we're going to go to connection. Client has the begin auth. this message is where the issue's at. Okay, so the message out, we are now using login with a VLP message type. I wonder if it's because login isn't actually using VLP. Okay. What I'm doing is I looked at the server code to see if VLP is an exchange ID that's ever used, and I don't see it. So now I'm searching all of the code base for other instances of VLP. The only place that ever uses it is login service, which is in connection client. This is being subscribed here. So this should be getting called. I wonder if this callback array, I like broke it at some point or something. This is login client. Honestly, I think welcome service has this don't use login service flag. Okay. Sorry, I'm theorizing what's happening here. Okay. So what seems to have happened is that there was a auth chain, and this is something I need to start documenting. I don't really have a formal location yet. I'm tempted. I was going to set up a GitHub page. Let's talk about that a little bit because I'm learning things and I want to make sure it's documented as I go for my own reference and other people's reference. So I made this wiki page, and the intent was that it deploys to a GitHub page. And it works. So we now have a wiki. And then what I can do clone this locally. First question. Let's do agent mode and say this site is a GitHub page. You force dark mode on it. Why is it not making the files in agent mode? But it did that. And then I don't know how fast this publishes, but we'll find out pretty quick here. This should trigger the deployment. Building a Docker image every time. It's because it uses Jekyll. Oh, that's just to build it. Then it does a deployment here. It worked, but I don't see the text. All right, a little bit of patience here. I've never used GitHub Pages before, so we're just kind of starting scaffolding. Perfect. All right, so what we're going to start doing is what sections do we want on our markdown? It'll be like networking, toolkit, client, server. Okay. Then the heck? We're just going to scaffold all of this like this, and then change these links like that. Okay. Something basic, something simple, just gets the ball rolling. There was somebody made a site about WorldCom. I don't know how to Google it very well. Yeah. Okay, so this isn't working. Why not? Also, why is it saying hello and then default? Oh. Okay, that fixes that. Why is there a dark mode CSS here? Yeah, that's not needed. My subpages are coming up 404. How do I link the networking index.md file inside? Got it. Well, fix that for me, please. And then we'll say like server. Yeah, let's see if that works. Oops, I forgot to put a message. Cool. So the whole reason I did that is we have networking, and then we're going to have a login kind of flow. Another question. Does Jekyll support mermaid? No. I'm assuming I just put this on the title field. Yeah. Are they using... Okay, so some Ruby-based system, that's fine. Okay, so now we can do a mermaid test. And theoretically, the preview will also render this. Yeah, that's a good question, Dougal. There we go. I guess the other thing is make a link to login. Oops, why is it not going dark mode for the whole screen? I know what do them site here, watch you code sit. That was some rough English, Dougal. What do them site here? Yeah, I'm just making a wiki site so that I can document as I go. It's a bit of a distraction, but I only have to do it once. Yeah, that makes sense. I see. So networking, soon we'll have login flow. But I think we have to wait for the next deployment. I don't know if that's going to fix it though. So we got it working as far as I think these pages are bright just from caching. There. Mermaid seems to be rendering. Yeah, I don't like flashbangs. Can I take pictures? I don't think I can, yeah. Theoretically, this will fix it. Anyways, if I can get a diagram working and if I can get to this step, I can start to visualize everything. Because essentially what's happening is no. It's been a while since I've used Mermaid. I know there's some other changes, but yeah, there we go. So it's rendering it. The other question though, okay. There we go. Yeah. That was pretty much just AI generating all this. Let's see how dark mode does on this and if we can clean it up in general. You know, it'd be another question. I don't care about that too much, honestly. What's this button do? I guess that's just like a marker that tells you that mermaid starts there. Interesting. Perfect. Dark mode, dark theme. We now have a login flow. Okay, so the actual flow is not exactly that, but I wanted to start documenting it in general. What we'll probably also want to do, it's actually VLP and SCS. We need to also start documenting the packet types. Okay, so what we're going to do is be like VLP and make it a link. Is that what VLP really means? Shard, choose shard. Okay, so we can now start adding contracts. One thing I don't like about the message-in system callback for the answer of the login password. If the login password is empty, then this is always returning. I don't know if I like this. Okay. These are all the entities that are actually events. So we're going to slowly be adding a ton of these. In fact, let's just do this. Know what I mean? That should be a decent lineup. And kind of gives you better scope of what the heck everything is doing. I think callback array is a reserved word that's used all over the place for... So like here's chat. Well, chat message is already handled. So we have VLP and then we have CS. So that's one issue, is that CS and SCS, is it responding with SCS and CS? Yes, CS is the reply. Is it possible to put links? No. But does like this work? Okay. Um, why is it login? Anyways, so now we can start documenting all the event types. It'll be organized. We have a call flow for the login auth chain. And in general, this will be much more cohesive for referencing. There is zero documentation like this prior, really. I think Ryzom networking. Guess I should Google and double check before I go too far. You know, we got some terminologies here. They have terminologies. This is more of like a corporate dictionary, but it doesn't really break down the architecture of... No worries, extreme cases. You're appreciated regardless. Hopefully it's nice to hear me in the background. What is this? Just a server for games? I mean, yes, that's a way to argue it. It's really, it was made for a specific MMO, and we're going to be adding liberties to it. But in order to do that, I need to become an expert at everything about it. And as I learn, I love to document so that others can be more productive when they touch this. So like we know that disconnect is DC. Where'd you get identification from? It's all AI slop, but we'll see how it looks over time. Anyways, and then we have failed in the callback for welcome. I don't know what failed is. This is probably part of the choose shard. The message in is part of C message. And what it does, this is one of those things where it's kind of weird. Let's take a step back, because currently we have full control over the both client and server communication. So we know that client is attempting to authenticate. And when it does that, it sends a request through the net source call, and it sends a VLP request. And that VLP request has a payload. And the payload has a string of login. Can I do this in CPP? Why isn't it? It might just be my preview doesn't understand like standard string and how it should be syntax highlighted, but that's fine. All right, so we have user password. There. Let's double check how this is all looking. Anyways, so now you basically have a scaffolding and a contract laid out. Eventually, I'll probably make a protobuf file that does everything you see here. Down the road, I'd love to abstract out a lot of these NLNet authentication callbacks and use something like gRPC or even a RESTful endpoint to do the similar thing of this like RPC system. On that topic, I'm kind of curious real quick while I'm thinking about it. Could I, how hard is it to add open telemetry to C++? How do you pass the span data, e.g. context, across functions? This is a pattern I use a lot in Go, and I'm not fully sure the equivalent in C++ or like what are the common patterns to pass argument spans and like context, especially like with cancellation methodologies. That's super powerful. Okay. So we have to initialize it. Use a scope. Child spans automatically use the current active span as parent. So we have like handle request. There's a tracer. We have an auto scope. Children will attach here. Oh, nice. So it's kind of like built in with the patterns. So you can pass the current context or just rely on scope above. You need explicit control. You can pass So context is a type in OpenTelemetry. Okay. Capture the parent context and set it as the explicit parent in the worker thread. Okay. You can also inject with the W3C trace context propagator. Yeah, I knew about that one. This one I don't think we would use as much. Why is this considered moderate? Looks pretty straightforward. Any downsides to scope? But this is all things that you're going to have to face with anyways. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Anyways, this is something to consider down the road. I don't know if it's going to be a good opportunity just yet. In general, with C++ 23, what is a common pattern to do a form of context cancellation in Go world equivalent? I've never asked these questions, so I'm just curious on what are some common design patterns with modern C++ that are... oh, you can use a stop token. And wait until or cancel is a method. Conditional variable any lets you wait with a token. Okay. And stop callbacks is cool. And it do cancellation. So in order to do this, you have to create a mutable cause. Yeah. It's gross. I don't think I need it, but I was just curious on how it works. So a little bit of an adventure there. To summarize, yes, obviously there's a lot of ways you can do it in C++, as per usual, but the patterns, they're a bit lengthy and they're not going to be good for my use case, but I was just curious how hard it would be to integrate something like that. Not as easy as it is in Go. Okay, so back onto this topic. We currently are attempting to document and cover all of the VLP system here. VLP being the verify login password flow. And we know that, I don't know what this SO2 crap is. Is this like, are these documentation steps for how the call is happening? Is SO3 documented on Quick Start? Nope. What about 4, 5? So these aren't even being covered properly. However, this does give us a hint that SO3 was removed, but SO4 still exists. The SO4 is the step of accepting the connection, which is essentially this. I don't like that though. But anyways, when SO4 comes in, it's also using VLP. So these reserved words, request and response, are really just payloads that are sent with a header type to differentiate. And on this one, ooh, I don't like this because technically this is how it works. I don't know how the error handling works. Like, this doesn't properly handle failures on the login password system. You can see, though, it continues the S number system. So the client is supposed to now confirm so SO5 is sending actually SCS from the client to the server. Then this is only getting serialized. So request has the shard ID, which is what? int32. Isn't it like int32t? And then the so that's SO5. SO6 is accepting it, but it doesn't exist. We've seen it though. It's right here. However, it responds with SCS or CS. The CS response has, what is LC? cookie. How does the cookie actually get serialized? I think it's a string. So we get a cookie, we get shard name, we get user privilege, we get user extended privilege. All right, and then the request has the shard ID, and that's what it replies. But there's also how can I visualize a flow failure, e.g. Cool. How does this look? I like it. Yes. Okay. Perfect. So we are actually documenting the network library and how this exchange should be happening. We obviously have a problem already that login, the server, is not properly accepting the request from the client. So that's going to be on my to-do to fix. But documentation is almost as important, if not more important, than even writing this, just because this is so helpful for following logic. Okay. The VLP response should only have reason. And the reason is typically populated unless it's a success. How does success get messaged? Like, what is reason by default? Is it empty? String reason is empty. If the user's not found, the reason gets populated with all these different fields. So we need an empty response. Okay. We'll verify that on the client soon. But see, this documentation just makes life easier to follow the flow. All right. We can keep going down the S numbers, because we were like on like SO5 or something. There's no SO6. But there is SO7 and 9. Actually, let's just do S0. So 7 is the welcome service actually uses it. So here's the login client confirming the connection. We now are choosing the shard, which is 5. There is 6. Here's actually choosing the shard, which means this is the CS flow. That's this code right here. Yeah. This is the existing code though. Which this one's deprecated. I almost need to get Ryzom core in here. In fact, that might be smart because I'm using modern. So let's grab Ryzom core. This is a clone of core 4. All right. So this is the client requesting. Here is the server getting the request and sending the response. We don't have, oh, okay, so SO8. So so we received the choose shard from the welcome service, and now we're sending an SES message to welcome service. Okay. And this is the server. This is number 8. This is the welcome service communicating with login service. This has more fields in it, user extended, and then you can see it's also sending instance ID. Can't tell what variants. This is a uint32. And this is instance ID. This is a new field. And then we also have character slot. And then there's also a cookie. I need to verify this. Yeah. Shit. I can see one of the issues is that if SES gets sent to the client, it's a failure. However, this also can happen. And login can get this from the welcome service. Oh, is that part of my issue? Yes, that is my issue. Welcome service is doing off, and we probably don't want it to. So that explains one of my issues. Okay, but now we know. This exchange here is wrong. There was an assumption in here. Because what's supposed to happen is we get a request, we're supposed to respond, then client is supposed to send a CS request afterwards with the shard info. And then the login is supposed to handle the CS request and respond with yes. With SCS. On failure or on success? Well, and this payload's different. So we're going to have to revamp this. The problem is if we revamp it, client's going to get messed up. So like client currently is attempting to connect to the login service, which all right. So step 1, connect. Step 2 is the VLP message, just like ours. Is this the exact same layout? Login password app? Yeah. Okay. Next is SO3, which we don't see, but we do get 4, which is that we get a VLP from LS. So this is still the same. So up to this point, we're identical. Then 5 is client. Client is sending. Yes. I have that wrong. No, it's right here. We're good. We're good. Okay. Yeah, you can see here's a handoff where SO7 is sending the CS message from login server and then sending a CS message to the selected front end service. This is how service is currently doing it, which means this gets a lot more complicated. There's not a simple client server relationship going on. So step 7 is not sending a CS response. What about on a failure? I think it still sends an SCS to WS after shard selection. Okay. Is this code the same on Snowball? I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah. I think it's closer to that. This will look nice as it grows because you'll have a nice visual of like the actual flow. But this is after I figure it out and get it all scaffolded because, you know, this takes some time of just deciphering and reviewing and validating. The part that's weird to me is that we're getting a failure even at this step. Which potentially means that VLP response I'm reading wrong. So VLP is being subscribed to as verify and this. Which, by the way, I absolutely hate the naming convention of some of these files. Like, you can't do this any worse. Okay, so this is the server, and this is the client. No. There's more VLPs. Okay. Here is the client. This is the client sends this. Then this is the receiver. See what I mean? The naming convention of these functions is horrible. And this is login client connection. So this is the login receives via this. This is the actual function flow, which, by the way, I will definitely clean up later. But that's the point. So authenticate begin is sending a request, and that's supposed to be triggering this function. But we know that this function is actually never getting triggered. And we've not identified why yet. This could be that my login service is broken, but I am learning that because of this handoff to welcome, we're going to need a little bit more scaffolding to continue this flow. For the interim, though, let's just continue down as if we've succeeded on this step and see if we can continue the logic. So we got the SCS. So welcome an 8. Is now sending SCS to the same service. And then I'm going to take the success failure crap out for now. Okay, so then welcome, I think, is actually What the heck? I turned on my LED somehow. I don't even know I could do that. I don't even know the hotkey for that. My keyboard lit up and I'm just like, what? Anyways, welcome is going to be sending it to front end. And it's going to send a SCS response. Well, it's actually a request again. And it's going to have reason and cookie. Okay. And then FES is supposed to send SCS now to login. It's not really like a request response structure, I don't think, actually. But see, what sucks is that all of these keywords do not have strict payloads. So if you send a CS header payload to server A, and you send a CS payload to server B or to login, the payload expected can vary, which to me is bad juju. Like, that heavily needs to be revamped, because if you don't, you end up with really weird bugs. I understand a lot of this is like, designed to be rigid, but yeah, I don't like that. I basically want a protobuf file that defines all of these contracts, because that's what these are. These are messaging contracts for the RPC. I'm honestly mocking proto files right now, but I'm just doing it in documentation style. Like in my book, what I'm expecting to do soon, just based on this initial research, is that we're going to have an entity folder in shared that contains like repository data, but then there'll also be a there also will be inside of this entity folder a style of request response entities with appended data derived from multiple repositories. And the request response is really, this is what business logic consumers use. And then for the RPC system, we want unique headers for every payload type and strict entity payloads. The only problem with like the shorthand lettering system is there's no like request reply formality. And because there's like multi-server communication, the request reply methodology is a little wonky anyways. But this is what I'm currently theorizing will be the next evolution of the networking library. It sucks because the more I change this, the more wonky things are going to be. But, you know, if we sit down and then start documenting like services and what message types they support, we can get a better cohesion on like the mess of all this communication. Because one of the issues I'm immediately seeing is that this is very wonky. So we can fix that pretty quickly. Like you see how we have these packet event types? Different services are consuming and broadcasting these types of payloads. And that's not documented very well. Maybe I can just use packet though instead of service. So the easiest way to find this is, fortunately, most of the services just call these. So I could even do this. And while login client, so this is, and then we have like client login. Looks like the only two that use it. Or how about this? So client receives VLP, you can see right here, and it also sends VLP. And then login service sends VLP and also receives VLP. See? And then what we could also do is start documenting things like that. So now we have CS. CS is going to get a lot weirder. So CS is going to be sent by login. It's also sent by, there's two login services on this list. Weird. Probably because it's two different files. Welcome sends it to, and that it? I think so. Chat has a CS element here. I think that's just the naming convention subscription. So client never sees CS. Okay. So technically CS is received by login and welcome as well. Okay. Now SES. So SES is definitely sent by login client. Or, I mean, sorry, it's received by. It's sent by the server login. It's sent by welcome. The ring sessions manager has a weird set type build message for scenario, which uses SES. I don't know what that means though. We're going to ignore that for now. because I don't know how Ring Manager even gets used right now. Okay. Now DC. Oh wait, did we get received by properly on SCS? Okay, so SCS definitely gets received by the client. Login. Welcome. Yeah. Okay. And then what about DC? So DC is sent by login. Or no, it's received by login. And it is sent by login as well. And it also is sent by welcome. Well, it is connected by welcome. Okay. This sort of replicates some of the work we did earlier, but it helps. So like another type that we haven't done is failed, which is part of the welcome service. We also don't have I don't know if these are true generics, but these are part of front end layer 5. Under flood service. This is I've never even heard of flood service. I don't know if that's a binary or if that's some sort of sub package, but we're going to ignore that for now. Okay, so front end. GPM. Has Pong and POS. And this is part of GPM. Okay. Ping, part of ping. Pong is part of player and also POS and also ACPOS. Chat is currently by chat, of course. Then we have info, which is sent by admin, get view, stops, that command, okay, so here's a CS and a DC. This is a generic module. I don't know what these are. I'm going to just... document them, but I don't know what they are yet. Okay, so this is... I think transport is inherited by every class. Okay. Now we're back to kind of more... This is inside of what's called admin executor. Admin Pong. We don't have view documented yet. Okay. So admin email is also used by admin. And graph update. Okay. So SES with login. Already know that. Login also has a few more things like CC, client connected. All right. Now we're going into welcome, which is, we got SCS. We already know that one. And then we have CC. Then we have RPC. Then we have FIPA. So I feel like welcome service so far has a lot of operations that's closer to like world for like the login server select stuff. But the truth is, I think welcome could be dumbed down and turn into just login. And because we don't need the patcher, we don't need all of these operations. I'll probably have to expand out login, but I might do a delegation similar to EQ with how login works and that separation of categories, just to dumb it down, because it feels there's too many services, you know? But NB players, you know, a lot of the welcome service stuff is very similar to, yeah, you can see the overlap though with welcome in FS, or welcome and login have a lot of overlap. Okay, so we got CS, and we got DC, we got failed, okay. Oh wow, these are lowercase. That's new. This is backup service operations. So we got BS file all underscore, which trips me up. We have BS file class. We have append. And we have BS Pong. I don't think these are... This is layer 5, but then you have like layer 3. We're not going to bother with layer 3 for now. I don't even know the implications of 5 and 3. I think 3 would be like a lower level request. All right, so we got a lot here. This is all mirror. What I might be able to just do is say, perfect. And yeah, I'm happy to at some point, Dougal, depending on you know, my busyness. Just probably, if possible, not EQ related. All right. I feel like this is... It's not even subscribed, so I don't think it has any purpose. AGS test also has S event. These are just test files. I'm going to ignore them and move on to AI data service. Which, this is weird. It doesn't actually get handled, so we're going to ignore this actually. All right, so this is AI. Which is going to be like, oh, interesting. Now it's like client target follow. I think with the colons, we should turn them into underscores. Well, this doesn't... Okay, we got a lot for AI. Okay, this is more backup. Save, load, append file check. BS ping, BS pong. We already have pong. We'll organize these later as well. We're not going to... Oh, these are all just unified. Okay. Now we have dynamic. One thing I think some of these are getting overly translated. All right, it's EGS time. Holy crap. EGS does a lot. Look at AI go, making my life easy. Okay. This is also part of EGS, but this is part of the chat service. Okay, this is part of dynamic sheets. What the heck? I just want user models and custom loop tables. Delete custom. This is part of the zone manager. There's only one really. And we're not even halfway done. I mean, it's good though. Let me take a quick break while I'm thinking about. So script. Well, I'm not great with AutoHotkey, but I could probably give you something sorts. Awesome. So anyways, we're going to continue documenting. This packet page is going to be very useful for research and organizing, because this is ultimately the equivalent of every packet that is being sent from the client to the server and vice versa. A lot of this is like server to server communication as well, though. So anyways, I'm over halfway done. I'll get the rest here shortly. And I don't want to lose my spot, so I'll just keep going. All right, so this is simple as that. This is part of the creature manager. This is the entity manager. All right, so now we're on the player manager of EGS, and there's actually a shitload in here. Bert. Why are these item events and stuff? These are all player. When I hit accept, why is it all green? All right. These aren't client connect enter taken out. It's fine. Honestly, if it's been commented out, it's gone. Better just to remove it. Did I go too far? I think I did. There. Okay, so entity system, entity view service. All right, so this is a new service. Which is literally just like target and EVS POS. Weird. All right. Front end. There's literally a service called General Utilities. I don't even know what to think about this. Like, okay. I think we have duplicate names for files, events. We have all sorts of issues that I'm probably going to have to clean up at some point because there's just ambiguity across the stack. There's no contracts. And you have a lot of hard-coded messaging and marshalling and stuff. I think that could be cleaned up heavily. The only problem with protobuf is it does add quite a bit of overhead. However, I don't know yet. I'm still debating. I'm not going to do the revamp yet. For now, I'm just going to keep it documented because it's just going to be a lot of work. All right, so we have something called GPM. This might even be a generic. Oh wait, this isn't even used. So why do you have something subscribed if it's not even used? There's just so much gross, like all this commented out dead code. Strip it out. You don't need to maintain stuff. Wait. Oh, yeah, dead is removed. The only thing that's create indoor, he didn't add that. Okay, what did he add? Add entity. Well, no, those were commented out. Okay, wait. You jacked this all up. All we want is create indoor unit. And entity teleportation. And acquire leave. And set. Okay, so it got it almost right. Okay. Wait, you're not putting... Wrong. You doing weird shit? String RQID. No, I think you're doing it right. But ready string was commented out. You fucked that part up, but you didn't do too bad. Send dynamic ID. Okay, you took that out properly. What about add DM and remove DM? You took them out. Good. Not bad. A little wonky, but... Technically mail forum, but close enough. No. 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 Okay. So, pick... Oh wait, these are identical. I've already done these. So monitor. This is part of PDlib. I don't know how PDlib is called, so we're just going to call it PD events. We're getting there. There's just so many. Holy cow. Ugh. And what's worse is there's just so much ambiguity and like overlap and reused keys, and I bet you they all serialize differently. So it might be worth my effort to just standardize them to some extent. I don't know. It adds cost. So this is also part of PD, I think. Why does this say RB now? Was that right? Reference builder service. No. I think RB stuff. Weird that even though this is here. Okay. Some ambiguity on that, but I'm not going to go too deep with it. There's enough going on. Okay, so we've done all of these already, right? No. We've done a lot of the SCS stuff. But get start open is there, but we don't have. This is only on welcome. All right, so Sabrina has some of the phrase manager events. Register event, register AI. Yeah, we already got these. The Sabrina AI also has so mail. Mail notif. Testing tool service. I do like You did it wrong. Close enough though. Okay. So tick events. No. Get range. Release range. Reacquire. Okay, this is a tick. Got register tick. We also have lock. We have halt tick and resume tick. Okay, so service front end as we're getting there. I think we're done actually. Yay! Technically these though are not in here right now. For the snowball. We have add, entity pass, remove, snowball. We don't have CLS update. It's a client update. There. So that was a lot of work, but what that does, why is this one so small? Is this like, okay, we're going to close that one. I'm actually a little scared at this second. There we go. As you see, we have a massive packet list. And we'll have to clean it up. We'll iterate on it later. I think that was a good progress. I don't like the syntax highlighter. I have to see if I can get one that's better. Okay, well, we didn't work a ton on the snowball auth chain, but what I've learned is welcome service and login conflict now with their responsibilities. And now that we've set up all these packet types, we can actually sit here and, you know, do a little bit better like this. Well, technically, this isn't fully documented. Well, it should be about it, though, other than Snowball, which is technically client. In fact, all the client events, this is primarily event handlers. I didn't I didn't do all the message out types because there are going to be a bazillion more message out types. And some of them I don't think are fully supported. I mean, just as a quick empty service is sending out water. But nothing receives this. Like, these are... I don't know why there's like an empty service that's got a bunch of functions and stuff that aren't even... Yeah. Huh. Anyways, there's going to be a bunch of that where there's just like... It's just noise, right? Like, it doesn't work. No one uses it. It just once upon a time existed. But here's your huge method list. And eventually these all will have references, but I'm starting to break down the payloads, the exchange, and it's a mess. Like the naming convention, the request response model type, I don't like because it's technically not true RPC. It's more of like message queue. So like if I replace this with gRPC, because what you can do with gRPC is you can be like this. Client says, you know, give me a hamburger. And then login receives this, right? And says, okay, let's find the restaurant. And then what it'll do is send it over to the restaurant. And it'll send the same payload. And when the restaurant replies on the same wire, it'll reply to client. Like it'll bubble it back up the request chain. Where the current design, it's like client sends request, and before it even sends it, it says subscribe to, you know, response channel, and then login sends request new to restaurant. And then restaurant sends response to subscribe. Or sorry, to a client. So it's like everything's detached. There's no wiring or you know, validity. Like client is never like truly waiting. Which, I mean, arguably, you know, async and sync is going to be an issue. That is something to consider. You're going to have to do polling no matter what. But I'm pretty sure you can do async calls pretty cleanly in C++. And then just put it on a dispatcher. No matter what, you're going to have a subscription model like this. But anyways, that's for the future. I don't need to worry about that right now. Today, big milestone was getting all the documentation in, you know, adding in the wiki, starting a flow kind of like this, which this needs to be cleaned up again. I don't know why I have dupes with this. But like even this, breaking down like how the services communicate with each other, we're going to have to clean up. And likely the easiest way to do that is we have duplicate responsibility problems with the current design. And now I can search and be like, okay, what does welcome do? Apparently not a lot according to this, which doesn't sound right. Like, welcome should have a shitload of events tied to it. Maybe it doesn't. Anyways, I want to be sure to break down all the different services, what the responsibilities are, quantify that, and find opportunities to take shit out. It doesn't help that some services are not isolated. Like GameShare has welcome servers information in here. And it also has it in welcome service. So like welcome service sends these. These are what, you know, the outbound or send. And then the receive is essentially this callback array, which there's a couple of them, but it's essentially this list. So client connected, disconnected. If the thing failed, it sends a patch address to front end. But you see what I mean? This is really what I will need to do, is like break down the sends and the receives of each service. So front end only sends that. Oh, front end sends a lot. There's just a lot of files. This is what front end sends, essentially. The key thing, though, is front end. What is it doing for messaging? We've already documented all this, but still. There. So the welcome service sends all this junk. The front end service sends all this. And we know that I could potentially dumb all this down. You know, I don't know what impulsion ID does. Porting impulsion ID to iOS. But why do we need an Impulsion ID? What is Impulsion anyways? I don't know. But yeah, you see this inline serializing payload stuff? No. that needs, oh man, look at this. Situational serializing based on the payload in XML. I think Impulsion is some sort of third-party service. That uses XML. Impulsion phrase learn. Yeah. I don't know. Impulsion's a weird thing. I should ask the guys about it, but I'm gonna call it. This was fun. I got a lot done. While I didn't finish the login flow, what I'm likely going to be ending up doing is taking like welcome front end and seeing what I can do. I'm probably going to just start organizing things like login, world, zone. And zone would be split into, I don't know what I'm going to call it, but let's say like we'll have some sort of service that handles client connections and routes it to various servers based on request, like front end, gateway, proxy. Let's say we keep calling it front end. Okay, so front end is going to be part of the zone realm. And then front end will have like EGS and probably some other services. And the intent is when you log in, it's pretty railed all the way till you get to front end. And the zone realm is also what a shard is. Call handoff too. I don't know anything about AutoHotkey scripts. I'd have pretty much starting from scratch because AutoHotkey is some empirical scripted language. AI could likely just generate something for you though, because it's been standardized for so long. But to me, world, now character select, you know, it could potentially be its own service. I don't know yet. Like this part, I might simplify, I might expand. Honestly, I probably will start servicing each of these, like breaking them into classes that can be instantiated and then making binaries, right? And when you're in dev or when you're just starting a game, you'll have like, you know, the zone binary. And each of these would just literally represent the entire game. But then when you go like into production, you split zone binary into sub binaries. And zone binary is just a grouping agent for all this. So anyways, that's just some future talk and thoughts. I'll have to maybe get to this point sooner than later, because once I can categorize this, I'm basically going to start gutting the entire infrastructure and potentially cleaning up every type of request and moving away from this, where you on the wire construct messages like this, but instead you inherit some sort of namespace with predefined entities for the request and response of each context. So that's some planning I got to do in the future. That'll be fun. And just in general, will be an evolution of the networking layer to keep it simpler. So anyways, that was fun. That was a lot of talking. So I think I'm done for the day. I don't know how long I streamed. Not that it matters. I'll look at here in a sec. But yeah, let's go to ending. Ooh. And looks like I've been streaming for about 3 hours. Not too bad. And yeah, thanks for hanging out, Dougal. I appreciate you chatting and just hanging out and, you know, doing your thing. Yeah, 2 hours and 52 minutes. It's almost tempting to stay another 8, but it's not required. But yeah, everyone have a good one. Talk to you later.